Hey guys, well, it looks like I'm live. I'm going to continue our studies into the Johannine Comma. So we're going to look today at the Johannine Comma and Tertullian. So Tertullian, he was born around 155 and he died about 245. So he makes a truncated reference to the comma, possibly around 200 AD. And so we see here in the Latin, he has the words qui tres unum sunt, and so which is translated into English as which three are one. And so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to read this English section here. It says, thus the connection of the Father in the Son and of the Son in the Paraclete produces three coherent persons, one from the other, which three are one. Not one person, as it is said, I and the Father are one. So Tertullian's use of tres unum sunt has been seen by many commentators as supporting authenticity, a textual connection to 1 John 5:7. It appears to me very clear that Tertullian is quoting 1 John 5:7 in the passage now under consideration. So that was Reverend Alexander Roberts in the Ante-Nicene Fathers, Volume 3, page 631. Proponents of authenticity emphasize the corroborative nature of examining the evidences of the time as one unit, including the Cyprian quotes and the Old Latin manuscripts. Quote, the testimony of these early fathers must stand and fall together, as Saint Cyprian obviously follows his master Tertullian. An inquiry into the integrity of the Greek Vulgate or received text, page 297, Reverend Frederick Noland in 1815 wrote that. So it's interesting that he knew the relationship between Tertullian and Cyprian, and he says the testimony of these early fathers must stand and fall together, as Saint Cyprian obviously follows his master Tertullian. So last night we looked at Cyprian and his quotation, which was a very clear reference to the comma. And so even though in this article I do give the benefit of the doubt and I say this is not as clear as Cyprian, but we do see it's very clearly in line with the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, all three, and it clearly says which three are one. And so let me just read that again. Thus, the connection of the Father in the Son and of the Son in the Paraclete produces three coherent persons, one from the other, which three are one, not one person, as it is said, I and the Father are one. So he doesn't say it is written three are one, but he clearly does say which three are one. And so I think that's very significant and that needs to be taken into consideration. Daniel McCarthy, also referencing the views of Wettstein, Nicholas Wiseman, offers an exegesis that the three heavenly witnesses are implied by context. George Strecker, I think it is, comments cautiously, an initial echo of the Comma Johanneum occurs as early as Tertullian. In his commentary on John 16:14, he writes that the Father, Son, and Paraclete are one, unum, but not one person, unus. However, this passage can be regarded as this passage cannot be regarded as a certain attestation of the Comma Johanneum. In the book, The Text and Canon of the New Testament, Alexander Salter, he states, by Alexander Salter, sorry, a little bit late here at night, and so I'm stumbling over some of these words. Tertullian's regular practice was to use the Greek original and to translate for himself. But in addition to his actual mention of existing Latin translations, it is clear that he sometimes used them himself. So that's the text and canon of the New Testament by Alexander Sauter. And so, um, even though I say in the previous paragraph, however, this passage cannot be regarded as certain attestation for the Comma Johanneum. I mean, let's just read through it again. Let's just have another quick look. And so it's in the connection of the Father and of the Son and of the Paraclete. So the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. And so basically, Paraclete is basically the Greek word for helper or comforter. So in the King James it would be comforter. In the New King James it would be helper. Both are very good translations of the Paraclete. Um, produces three coherent persons, one from the other, which three are one. And so I think it's very significant that it's these three are one, which three are one. They're one. And so um, not one person, as it is said, I and the Father are one. And so it's very interesting there. And so what I'm doing with these common studies, we're basically just going through some of the early church writings, looking at the source documents. And so this is just an article on my webpage. If you go to tr.org.au, on the front page, you should be able to navigate that and find 1 John 5:7. It's usually down the bottom of the page there somewhere. Or you can reference that by going through or just typing 1 John 5:7 into the search bar, and you should be able to get that. And so this is a short video. The one I did last night on Cyprian was a lot longer because I read an article by Martin Shue to Dan Wallace. But I encourage you to go through that. And hopefully this helps you. I'm going to be trying to do a few of these every week, even though if they're just short, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, an hour, however long it takes, 3 hours, I'll just continually chip away at this information, because even me just reading through this tonight and just sort of cleaning up my page a little bit, I was like, wow, he is referencing the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit here. And he says, which three are one. And so when we zip back through, and I'll show you how to navigate my site. Actually, I'll show you how to find, um, I'll show you how to find my site. So you go tr.org.au, textreceptus.org.au. So we go to the main page. And if you navigate down there, now I've got this a little bit bigger than usual. So it's 150 here. Well, usually it's just 100, but it's just so that you guys can read along. And it's got a whole bunch of stuff about the TR, but then we get New Testament and Old Testament. Now, if you go to 1 John here, you can go to 1 John 5, click on that, and there's a whole bunch of information that will come up. 1 John 5:7, you can go there, and then you can navigate through. You've got 1 John 5:7, the Johannine Comma, index of Johannine Comma articles, and 1 John 5:8. One of the things is I actually made 1 John 5:7 page, and I put all the information on there, and then I realized it actually does incorporate 1 John 5:7 and 8. And so I was like, oh, so I'm trying to grab this information and put it into this article, which is Johannine Comma. So then I've made an index of the comma articles. Now there's actually more than I've got listed here, but this is basically a list of articles that I've gone through. Obviously the red ones haven't been done yet. And some of them are only just a little bit of information. Like say we go through the Dutch Bibles, and some of them, they're not really even to do with defense of the comma. It's just facts and stats. And sometimes you can spend days and days and days going through something, and it's not for or against, it's just information. Obviously, I'm trying to find information for, but sometimes it doesn't all work out that way. So these are just TR-based Dutch Bibles that have the comma. And so I've taken nice little snapshots there. You've got the text, you've got the context there, then you've got the text, 1 John 5:7, 1 John 5:8. And so you can go through that in the Dutch Bibles and you can compare them and go through all that. How many people would be interested in that? I'm not really sure, but it's just one of those things that you end up doing when you're studying this information. So I've got Edward Hills, Ezra Abbott, he's against it. Edward Hills is for it. Peter Ruckman, King James only guy, for it. Elijah Hickson, he's against it. James White's against it. Bruce Metzger's against it. Walton, he was for it, but he did the Walton's polyglot. And so I'm going to be reading through all these articles just to give you a bit of a taste. I've got a bit of Ethiopic there. See, and some of these articles I haven't finished. I've just got pictures up there and a few bits of information. So this is really quite challenging for me because even tonight I had to spend probably about 30 minutes just tidying up that one tiny little article that I wrote. So I've actually made a Johannine Comma timeline, which you might be interested in. Now, this takes quite a bit of time to go through, but you might be able to see that there where I've got supportive and then historical period, so that's between 100 and 109, it's quite specific, or text add or text omit, and unsupportive. And so if we go down, okay, we've got Clement of Alexandria. And so it's 210 to 219. And so I haven't really written the text in there. I'll probably get around to that later, but it's just a work in progress. And so it's just so you can go there and go, okay, and click on that and find his work. And so I've done a little bit of work on there, and it's probably one that I'll read in the next few days, and it just goes through some of the information about him quoting in that. And so then we got Origin. And I just wanted to create a bit of a timeline so people can get a feel of who these people are and where they're quoting it. And so even the Tertullian one, I haven't even put that in there. So this is just a constant work in progress, just putting in this timeline. And obviously I'm going hundreds of years here where there are lots and lots of quotations. The witness, whoops, if I spelled it right, it would probably come up. Witness, no. I was just actually seeing if I had the book, The Witness of God is Greater. And so that has pretty much every 10 years is filled with information. And so, but I've only really just sort of started this. So this has the article by, or concerning Joseph Bryennius, and his comments that I mentioned last night, how it has pretty much the exact words of Scrivener here. And so that's quite interesting. We'll go through that one when the time comes. And then we've got, we enter into the era of the Renaissance, the first reformers, who were sort of in the Catholic Church, and then we have the first reformers in the Protestant Church. Martin. So here we have on this side we have the Complutensian polyglot. So these guys were for the comma. Then we have Desiderius Erasmus. So he actually omitted the comma in these first two editions. And so when you click on that, it goes to the actual Textus Receptus that he has, and so you can go through that. Now that doesn't go through to the actual image, but some of them do. It just takes quite a long time to go and find that actual image and put it into the link, but at least you can sort of navigate through that and try to find it. So, but then you see Erasmus jumping over to this side. So in his 1522, 1527, and 1535, he does have the comma there. And so we see Martin Luther, he was against that, but then later on, he actually became quite warm to it. And so, but that's where, when we get to Luther, hopefully I'll have a whole bunch of information that will prove that. Richard Simon, John Mill, so he was for it. Then we have Thomas Ellman and his book there. And we have Edward Gibbon. He wrote The History and Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire. Then we have Eugenius Vulgaris and Franz Anton Nittel. Then we have Richard Pawson writing against those guys, Thomas Burgess. And so, yeah, it's just going through history. Thomas Horn, it was quite interesting to find his favourable information about it. And then years later, he's like, no, I don't believe it anymore. Then we go to Scrivener, who everyone thinks is the Mr. TR guy, and he actually was really, really against the TR. Um, Dabney, haven't got much written by him, but Edward Hills, so he wrote about that. Then we got Bruce Metzger, D.A. Carson's, this is the 1970s. Then we got guys like Michael Maynard, Bart Ehrman, James Wyatt, Theodore Leadus, D.A. Waite. And so hopefully, say someone like Leadus, what would be really good is to say, say the Jack Mormon one, I've got a link straight to his page so you can read through it. And so, I've got Dan Wallace, Grantley MacDonald, Bill Brown, James Snapp, Barry Hofstetter, Gavin McGrath, he talks about it, Will Kinney, Stephen Avery. I actually should probably put myself there. Jeff Riddle, and this is just, there's so many other people, but I just haven't had time to do this. If you actually want to spend time editing my site, it's like Wikipedia, you can go through and edit it. But the problem is to actually teach someone how to do what I'm doing here, it can be quite hard. So I end up doing everything myself. It takes a long time, even just to get those photos happening. You sort of there for 10 minutes and finally you get a nice little round photo and you put it in there and it's like, man, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, it all adds up. And so, but I'm not sparing anything here. I'm putting, James Snapp, he's not a comma guy. Barry Hofstetter, he's not a comma guy. I haven't actually put Georgios Babiniotis here, which I should. So I haven't edited this one for quite a long time. So it's probably been like 6 months since I've edited it. So anyway, I thought I'd show you that. So that's going to be quite interesting once it starts getting finished, because we'll be able to see, who was for it, who was against it. And what I can do too is I can put manuscripts that are relative to 1 John 5:7, either for or against, if it has it or it doesn't. So obviously with the Greek, it's going to fill up this side of the column, but obviously with the Latin, it's going to fill up this side of the column. And so it's going to be quite interesting to see that whole lineage there. So I sort of got that idea from Michael Maynard in his book. He tends to do that. He just has, like, he goes through by centuries. And also the book, The Witness of God is Greater. You can see that he's done that as well, and so it's a little bit looser, but yeah, it's really well documented. So anyway, I think I'll end this video, but hopefully that will give you a bit of understanding about what I'm doing. So it looks like we've gone for about 20 minutes. I'll just see if there is any comments. No comments there. And so I'm doing this at 10:44 at night in Australia. So I think a lot of America would be early morning there. So most people who are interested in this stuff are American. And so anyway, God bless you guys. I will continue on. I think I might do my next video on Origin. We'll look at what he has to say. And I'm just going to go through, just quickly, I'll just go through and show you the basic outline of where I'm going with all this. So I probably should have a better order, but I've just started to go through some of these articles. I mean, Cyprian is probably the most favorite commentator that people like to quote. Tertullian, so we've just done that. Clement of Alexandria, but then we've also got, so that's the Latin manuscripts. Origin, so we've done Cyprian. Theodorus, and then we've got Ephraim the Cyprian, Ephraim the Syrian, Basil, we got tons of guys around the 300 to 400 era, Athanasius, a bunch of other guys, Jerome's Vulgate, and so we're going to go through all these and we're just going to examine them. Now, some of them I don't really know that much about. There's so many quotations. That's like I said. Let's if we just go through this page here. I mean, just this quotation here, which I don't really even know how to pronounce that, but it's in his writings on the Trinity. 1 John, he quotes 1 John 5:7 in its entirety, which is found in the works of Athanasius. And so here we have people like James White saying, oh, Athanasius didn't use it, and it wasn't used in the Council of Nicaea and all this. And so it's like you start going through all this stuff, and you're like, man, it was quoted quite frequently. But the thing is, what I really want to do is if I do a whole video on this guy, I want as much information as I possibly can. Now, if I do happen to say I did an article on or a video on Council of Carthage, or the one I um, did today on Tertullian, there might be more information that's out there that I've actually missed. And so sometimes, people say, oh, you actually, what you've said is good, but there's, two other quotations that have been found in the book of Psalms, or, this other book that they found, or they found a manuscript discovery, or this has been translated and it says, the comma. And so what I will do is I'll just make a part 2 to this video. So it'll be like, the Comma Johannine and Tertullian part 2, so that might happen in 6 months, in a year, 5 years, so that way it can be referenced in YouTube, and I'll try to put this in one big playlist, but then that way it'll come up and I can put writing over the first one saying, there is a part 2 to this, or sometimes especially when we get to someone like Erasmus, there's probably going to be 40 parts, you know what I mean, or the Complutensian Polyglot, or King James translators, or it's just going to be finding new nuggets of information and going, okay, here it is. So anyway, thanks for joining us, guys. God bless you. I'm going to end it right there.